Ozzy Osbourne's secret daughter sends Sharon her hair, blood and nails for DNA test. Death has a strange way of bringing out the most unexpected people from the shadows, and in the case of rock legend Ozzy Osbourne's passing, it has unleashed a wave of bizarre claims that have left his family both bewildered and exhausted. Among the flood of messages and condolences that poured in after the Black Sabbath icon died in July at the age of 76, one particularly disturbing communication stood out from all the rest. A woman, absolutely convinced beyond any reasonable doubt that she is Ozzy's long-lost daughter, took her desperate quest for answers to a level that most people would consider deeply unsettling. She didn't just send a letter or an email making her case. She didn't just request a meeting or ask for consideration of her claims. Instead, she packaged up physical samples of herself, including strands of her hair, drops of her blood, and even clippings of her toenails, and mailed them directly to Sharon Osbourne with a plea for DNA testing that would supposedly prove their biological connection. This revelation emerged during the latest episode of the Osbournes podcast, marking the first time Sharon and her children Kelly and Jack had come together for a public conversation since losing the man who defined their family and shaped their lives in countless ways. The former X Factor judge, now 73 years old and navigating the devastating reality of widowhood, shared this shocking detail as part of a broader discussion about the strange and sometimes disturbing ways people have been reaching out to the family since Ozzy's death. Kelly Osbourne, who at 41 has experienced her share of public scrutiny and unusual fan interactions throughout her life in the spotlight, explained that the family has been dealing with what she described as quite a few nutters emerging from the woodwork with various outlandish claims. Some of these individuals insist they've been communicating with Ozzy from beyond the grave, channeling messages from the deceased rock star with the kind of certainty that leaves the family torn between amusement and concern. But the woman claiming to be Ozzy's secret daughter has taken things to an entirely different level with her biological evidence submission. Sharon recounted the moment they received the package, describing how this stranger had sent them her toenails along with other bodily samples. Kelly elaborated on the contents, confirming it wasn't just a single toenail but also included blood and hair, all carefully collected and dispatched because this woman has convinced herself with unwavering certainty that she shares DNA with the legendary rocker. The family's tone when discussing these incidents carried a mixture of dark humor and genuine exhaustion, suggesting this is just one example among many of the strange ways grief and fame intersect to create situations that most people would never have to contemplate dealing with. If you're fascinated by the bizarre and often shocking realities of celebrity life after death and want to stay informed about how famous families navigate these unexpected challenges, make sure you hit that subscribe button and click the notification bell so you never miss updates on stories that reveal the stranger side of fame. While the DNA test demands and unusual packages certainly qualify as disturbing, they represent just a fraction of the challenges the Osbourne family has faced since losing their patriarch. Sharon has been remarkably candid about the profound difficulty of adjusting to life without Ozzy, opening up about struggles that millions of widows and widowers around the world can relate to regardless of their level of fame or fortune. During the podcast episode, she revealed a deeply personal promise she made to Ozzy before his death, telling him with absolute conviction that she would never be with another man. This declaration speaks to the depth of their bond, a relationship that survived decades of chaos, addiction struggles, health crises, and the intense pressures that come with living in the public eye. But beyond the romantic aspect of her grief, Sharon confessed to something even more immediate and painful in her daily existence. She admitted that she hates going to bed at night, dreading the moment when she has to enter their empty bedroom and face the crushing reality that Ozzy will never again be lying beside her. The vulnerability in her admission painted a picture of grief that goes far beyond public memorial services and tribute concerts, revealing the private, moment-to-moment suffering that comes with losing a life partner. Kelly provided additional context about those early days following her father's death, revealing that she moved in with her mother and slept alongside her for the first 2 months to ensure Sharon wouldn't have to face those terrifying nights alone. The image of a daughter returning to care for her mother in such an intimate way speaks to the role reversal that often happens when families experience devastating loss. Eventually, Kelly felt that Sharon needed some space to begin processing her grief independently, a decision that required trusting her mother could start finding her own way through the darkness. Meanwhile, Jack Osbourne shared his own approach to grief management, explaining that he has found solitude and alone time to be surprisingly helpful in dealing with the loss of his father. Each family member's different coping mechanism highlights how grief is such a deeply personal experience, with no single correct way to navigate the aftermath of losing someone who meant everything to you. The circumstances surrounding Ozzy's death added layers of both tragedy and triumph to his final chapter. He died just weeks after delivering what would become a legendary homecoming performance at Villa Park in Birmingham, the city where his remarkable journey began decades earlier. That concert represented a full-circle moment for the Prince of Darkness, returning to his roots to perform for the people who had supported him since the very beginning of his career. The fact that he was able to deliver one final triumphant show before his death provides some measure of comfort to fans and family alike, knowing that his last public act was doing what he loved most in the place that shaped him. Now the family is seriously considering organizing a tribute show in his honor, with Sharon confirming that she's been in conversations with Villa Park again about potentially hosting an event that would celebrate Ozzy's life and legacy while giving fans an opportunity to pay their respects. When asked whether these plans were actively moving forward, Sharon's response of "we'll see" suggested that while nothing is confirmed yet, the idea is being seriously contemplated as a way to honor the man who gave so much to music and to his devoted followers around the world. The support the Osbourne family has received since Ozzy's passing has come from numerous unexpected sources, including one particularly touching gesture from King Charles himself. Jack revealed during the podcast that they received a lovely letter from the monarch, prompting Sharon to express genuine admiration and gratitude for the king's thoughtfulness. She went out of her way to praise Charles as an amazing person, emphasizing that his kindness extends far beyond their family to many, many people dealing with loss and hardship. Sharon noted that this wasn't the first time the king had reached out to the Osbournes during difficult moments, recalling how he had also contacted them following Ozzy's serious quad bike accident back in 2003, an incident that could have easily ended the rocker's life decades earlier than it ultimately did. The fact that King Charles has maintained this connection with the family over the years, remembering to reach out during their darkest hours, speaks to a level of genuine compassion that goes beyond mere obligation or protocol. Sharon's comment that the king has a good heart and has done certain things for Ozzy that he didn't have to do reveals the deep appreciation the family feels for these gestures of support from someone at the highest levels of British society. The final years of Ozzy's life were marked by numerous health challenges that gradually diminished his physical capabilities even as his spirit remained unbreakable. He had been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, a progressive neurological condition that affects movement and can cause tremors, stiffness, and difficulty with balance and coordination. In addition to Parkinson's, Ozzy suffered from various other health complications that accumulated over decades of hard living, touring, and the natural aging process. Despite these mounting challenges, he continued to push forward, determined to make music and connect with his fans for as long as his body would allow. When the end finally came, it was a heart attack that claimed him at the age of 76, bringing to a close one of the most remarkable and improbable survival stories in rock and roll history. For someone who had been written off as unlikely to survive to 30 given his legendary substance abuse and wild lifestyle, making it to 76 was itself a kind of miracle that defied every prediction and expectation. Ozzy was laid to rest in Birmingham on July 30 in a ceremony that brought together family, friends, and countless admirers who had been touched by his music and his authenticity over the decades. In an extraordinary tribute that underscored his cultural significance, the band of the Coldstream Guards paid homage to the fallen rock legend by performing Paranoid during the changing of the guard ceremony at Buckingham Palace. This unprecedented gesture represented a remarkable collision of British tradition and rock and roll rebellion, with one of the most formal and regimented military bands in the world performing one of the most iconic heavy metal songs ever written. The sight and sound of uniformed guards marching in precision while playing the song that helped define an entire genre of music created a surreal and deeply moving moment that perfectly captured Ozzy's unlikely journey from working-class Birmingham youth to globally recognized cultural icon whose influence transcended musical boundaries and class distinctions. The podcast episode where these revelations emerged marked an important milestone for the Osbourne family in their public grieving process. Sitting down together to share their experiences, their struggles, and even some of the absurd situations they've encountered allows them to process their loss while maintaining the kind of dark humor and brutal honesty that has always characterized their family dynamic.